Hi, I'm Vizzy. I like making diagrams, so let's get right into it. Many people get uncomfortable talking about politics. So much so that in American culture, it's generally considered rude to bring up the topic. But it should be obvious to say, everything is political. And some of you may disagree with that notion as a knee-jerk reaction, but let me explain. Politics is about people in organized society and how we agree to operate within it. Therefore, unless you're entirely removed from society at large, there's really not a way to avoid it. From the more obvious political campaigns to the media you consume, especially that of which is algorithmically distributed to you online. Politics is unavoidable. Regardless of where you stand politically, I'll be discussing two main issues that pervade its discussion with regards to the US political climate. The first one I already alluded to, and that is the myth of neutrality, an unbiased discussion. It's interesting watching debates online or any type of political conversation where people tend to put logic against emotion. When someone shows emotion, that means they lose. Or if someone is being biased towards a specific group of people, for good or bad, that is seen as inherently playing the game wrong, so to speak. But I tend to get confused in these situations as we are all biased. Of course, in different ways, but it's true for all of us and everything we consume. Even this video you're watching is biased and is not objective, nor am I going to make the claim that you can be objective or unbiased. I think the point that I'm getting at is that we are products of our environment and of our genetic code. And when we discuss politics, it's not just rules and regulations. We're discussing how people are allowed to live their lives. So it's no wonder why discussion gets so heated. Also, the idea of being apolitical is something I view as a non-neutral political stance to make. I think if you're in a position where you can afford not to play the game of politics, whether that be due to your socioeconomic status, environment, or other factors, you are afforded that benefit of not having to pick a side, for lack of a better phrase. I think that people like neutrality because it's easier to receive political information when it doesn't seem like it's trying to convince you of its legitimacy. Which, while this can be useful from an educational standpoint, it fails to recognize that people have a wide range of political opinions, and just because they express one does not tell you anything aside from the stance that they are claiming. The second issue is the use of political labels and identity politics. As you saw from the thumbnail, you've probably already seen the political compass and have taken the quiz, and others before me have already discussed why exactly it's flawed. Mainly due to the fact that it boils down politics into solely two axes, that of which doesn't get down to the nitty-gritty of what somebody believes. Additionally, there are some other fringe political theories that exist, such as the horseshoe theory, which claims that the far left and far right share more with one another than they do with the center, and the fishhook theory, which claims that the center is more likely to agree with the far right than it is with the far left, which have both received mixed reception. I bring them up to show part of the spectrum of online discourse. Each of these charts are still, in their own ways, simplifying complex political discussion. There are some other tests online that use sliding scales to convey general stances that are slightly better, but they still lack what I believe is necessary. Basically, if I claim to be a Democrat, for instance, it does not tell you anything about what exactly my political stances are. I could be pro-gun, I could be pro-choice, I could be for low government intervention, and the list goes on, but it doesn't tell you why I believe those things. Maybe I'm pro-gun because I want the means to defend myself. Maybe I'm pro-choice because I'm a feminist, etc. The point is that the political label that you decide to go with may not convey exactly what it is you believe or why you believe it, or when you get so specific with what exactly your political ideology is. Your stance is, as far as labels go, an undecipherable bit of word salad, and it turns politics into semantic nonsense, which is honestly part of a bigger problem that I'll have to address in another video, but I digress. Furthermore, when discussing political identity with others, we tend to get stuck on labeling the in-group and the out-group. This tribal mentality causes us to differentiate ourselves from others who don't carry the same label as us, which, as you can imagine, causes demonization of certain groups of individuals. So, for example, this is disliking someone because of their political label, as opposed to disagreeing with them on the basis of their political views. You may even find people supporting candidates or causes that they may not fully agree with, but they vote for them because it's for their team. This, in turn, causes the dialogue to become grossly oversimplified into a battle of identity, which does not get past the idea that everyone is entitled to their opinion, and we should agree to disagree, which are true, but they don't help us run a functional society where we need to reach some form of consensus. Luckily for us, the laws we've written are not in stone, but on paper. Times change, and so does our perception of what is right and wrong. There are things today that we will look back on several decades later and wonder how we ever allowed that to happen, just as we do with our predecessors. Realistically, the two issues I brought up are not the only ones, but I do think they're some of the cornerstones as to why such a heated political landscape exists in the United States. I ask that you keep the comment section civil. This video does not seek to discuss which party is better, whose fault this all is, or what beliefs are right and wrong. The reality is that there are not supposed to be winners and losers in this political game. The moment you view it this way, you begin to forget what politics is for. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching.